This is the Voice for Real Estate podcast. Whether you're buying a home, building a home, or designing a home, you'll meet the local experts who can provide all the information you need in every episode of Voice for Real Estate. And be sure to subscribe, share, and comment so you don't miss a single episode of Voice for Real Estate.
Bill Macchio here with My Pleasant Magazine, and I have to tell y'all, I'm really excited about this episode of Voice for Real Estate. I have a Charlestonian with us here, Sandra Patrick. Sandra, hi, thanks so much for coming. I appreciate you coming. I really do.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I think, as we've discussed, I really think the knowledge you have of the industry since you've been doing this, we just talked about 20 years, that it'll help people that are buying and selling. But before we go to the business part, let's talk about your kids. Now, you have two children. You have a boy and a girl, right?
I do. Yep, I do. Paul David and Eleanor.
And Paul David plays football, did you say earlier?
He does. He plays football for Oceanside. He's a sophomore there.
Yeah, that's great. Has he been going to Oceanside since it started?
No, he's only a sophomore, so this is his second year there. So, but I'm good friends with the guy who started it, and so it's a fabulous school. Very lucky to be there.
For those that don't know, that's a charter school here in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. We're going to talk about the whole state of South Carolina in this podcast. I did want to introduce your hobby, if you would. What do you and your daughter like doing? I understand that you guys kind of partner up on some things.
We do. We love horseback riding. We're in the hunter jumper world out there and go to a show 1 or 2 a month with our barn, stealing the show Stables with Chad Crosby. And we love it. It's our family away from here. And, we're a crazy barn family and we absolutely love it.
Where do you keep your horses?
We actually keep them at a friend's property up in Allendale. And so we are all there together. And then we show, within South Carolina, a little bit in North Carolina.
The name of your business is C2C, correct?
Right. South Carolina C2C.
And you specialize in helping your main client base is who?
Is real estate agents in South Carolina.
So you help them do the real estate transactions, correct?
Right. We kind of pick up or they hand it off to us, or we start working with them as their back office team from contract to closing. So there's the C2C.
Well, Sandra, that's why besides you're a special kind of person. That's why I wanted to bring you on because, man, that you have such a bird's eye view of everything. Do you not think the same?
Oh yeah, we can kind of give our agents a heads up of how we feel like the market's going to go. 2020 and 2021 were definitely different, but in ordinary years, if you can say that we could start feeling the market pick up. When we knew the spring market was about to get busy and things, just because we work with so many different types of agents with so many different types of properties that we could kind of get an overview of it.
So do you actually, I know your main job, and we're going to get into that because I think it's essential for the listeners to know, but do you feel that do your client base come to you and ask for advice sometimes before the even closing happens?
They do, and it's just because we're just well versed from the contract to closing process, and with me have been doing it for so long, and a lot of my closers have been doing it for so long as well. We've probably seen it and done it. If the agents themselves haven't experienced it, we've pretty much gone through it because again, we do all types of property from mobile homes in Cottageville to multi-million-dollar properties on Isle of Palms or Daniel Island. So we do everything in between. So we can usually tell them if we're warning about something.
And you assist in closings, Aiken and Beaufort and other places in the state of South Carolina?
We do. We decided to expand outside of Charleston just because there's a market out there that we felt needed it. There's not a service in those areas like us. So I figured I like those separate towns. So why don't go out there and have some connections with them personally? So go out there and get some agents and help them with their contract to closing process too.
It's really cool, Sandra, too, that the real estate industry, the real estate professionals, you really have to understand, and I know you do, who they are and the hard work. Because I think there's a misconception of the general population, these guys don't work hard. And you and I know that's not true, is it?
It's so far from the truth. And that's one of my things when I talk to agents to kind of let them know how I can help them, is I let them know we don't replace them. We are merely an extension of them. We are their back office team from a very important part of this whole process, which is the contract to closing. They are their own CEO of their business. I completely understand that. They've worked these relationships for years to get to this point. And so we just simply help them out to really make sure it gets done. All the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed.
Be part of the conversation surrounding Mount Pleasant. Sponsor the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Podcast marketing is the new, powerful way to brand your business and reach your customers. For more information, visit carolinapodcasts.com or call 843-345-7012.
You're listening to the Voice for Real Estate podcast, a conversation about coastal Carolina real estate.
Obviously, you're out there to make the life of the realtor a little easier. Mm-hmm. How does it help the actual buyer or seller of real estate?
Well, it helps them have somebody else to talk to, especially if this is a first-time home buyer or if it's an older seller and they're, selling their home for the first time. The agent is usually going to be out and running around to appointments, home inspections, meeting with other clients. They can get a hold of us and we can answer any questions they have. We can send them documents that they might need or that they've maybe misplaced, and just keep them up to date as to how the contract is moving along, how the loan is moving along. So again, it just gives them a little peace of mind that there's somebody else they can talk to and help them out and answer questions from the contract to closing, because it is a personal thing. This is somebody's home. Like I said, whether it's their first time home or whether it's they're selling their home they, got married in, or their late husband, they live together. So it is a personal thing. And we take pride in that. And we are like helping out the buyers and the sellers. So they know that their agent's treating them more special because they know they deserve that kind of care.
Well, Sandra, I've known you for a good while, and I can say those are not just words. That's the way you actually feel. And because there's a lot of emotion in all the process. The realtors must really love that. Let's talk about the market a little bit. Let's go back to 3, 4, 5 years ago. What was it like then, and what was it like now? What is it like now for you? 3
or 4 years ago, I'm going to use a word nobody can say anymore. It was more normal real estate transactions. You go under contract, you close within 30 to 45 days. You got a home inspection, you got a CO 100, everything like that. And then you close after all the repairs were agreed upon, etc. Now it's fast moving. If you're a seller, you better have a place to go because it's hard to find something to go to. It's more cash offers than there are loans out there.
Let's talk about the cash offer for a second. You mentioned the fact that some of the cash deals that are going now, there's many more now. There might have been 10%, 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Right.
That's doubled in size of the amount of cash.
Absolutely. And it's because, I jokingly say it's the great migration south of all the people leaving these big populated cities just to come to Charleston or Aiken or Beaufort. It's happening there too, and Greenville just as much as it is happening here in Charleston. But, they want to come to a community that they feel as though, that they're close with. And the amount of cash, I guess, where they're selling from, usually they have a lot more cash in hand that they can just put down on the homes here, because our homes are definitely less expensive than they are up in New York or New Jersey or something like that. And they get more for their bang down here. So
other than cash deals, what is the other things that are different in the marketplace right now?
Well, there's a lot less contingencies when it comes to a contract. So a lot of times it's not contingent on appraisal right now. And if it is, the buyer's willing to come to closing with cash if they have to make up the difference.
Well, do you remember earlier on we talked about the percentage of cash offers is almost doubled, if not more than that. Okay.
Right.
If you looked at it in your memory bank, how many deals are happening right now that are above, they have to bring money to the table? What percentage would you say?
It actually hasn't been that much. I'd maybe say about 15%, only because then we have on the other end of that is a lot of them are not even contingent on an appraisal. They just might get one done for their peace of mind,
Oh,
but the
that's
contract
funny.
is not contingent on it.
So you wouldn't know as a closing coordinator if what it appraised for because there wasn't even an appraisal done.
Exactly. And on the seller side, I'm not allowed to find out what it was anyway. So only if I'm on the buyer side is what I can find out if they had one done.
Pretty much everybody that's listening to this or watching this knows what 2007, 2008, 2006, 2009 was like, okay? Do you think it's that kind of bubble?
I don't. I lived through that market and I became an expert at short sale negotiations. I was the in-between person talking from the seller and the bank, or the buyer side and the bank. And it's nothing like that. We had so many no-doc loans back then with no money down, and you didn't have to proof of that you could afford the home. Again, what we're seeing now are people putting 80% down, 50% down, or paying outright cash for the property. So it's definitely not the same kind of bubble. I do think that the prices are high right now. So they'll probably level off at some point in time. But while you have the supply and demand there, it's going to remain high.
I agree with you, Sandra. I don't think when that discussion comes up, it's pretty clear and pretty easy to define why 2008 happened and what's going on right now. I think the biggest question in a lot of people's minds right now is kind of what you addressed, what will the prices adjust to? I think that's the only big question. Do you concur with that?
I do. And I just think that we all have to update that where we think the normal price is, let's say a year and a half ago, it's not necessarily there anymore. It's probably a lot higher than it used to be. And that's the level of the new norm. I mean, the house is only worth what somebody's going to pay for it. And people are paying a lot of money for houses. So it's just going to increase what the level of the value of the home is.
You see, you and I talked, and I wanted you to help me put a number on it. And your firm has been responsible for anywhere from 12 to 15,000 closings. That's a lot of knowledge, man. That's a lot of knowledge. Yeah. What would be the number one thing from the time you started in 2002 and now? And you can say two things, whatever you want to say. But what are the highest things in your mind that resonate that's different about 2002? Not necessarily the market today, but in general, 2002 versus 2022.
Just the technology alone. When I started, I had the trifold 8 by 11 or 17-inch blue folders with the tabs in them that I'd print off every single document for the contract, and I would fax everything. And when I traveled, I had basically a carry-on size suitcase that I'd put all my folders in and would have to go with that. And now I have a binder and I log in and everything is online for me. So just having that is huge because people are so much more accessible. They can get the stuff easier instead of having clients having to go to Kinko's or Office Depot to receive a fax from me. Now I can just email the 80-page, PDF. So I haven't even heard that sort of thing has been great.
I haven't. I can't remember last time I heard that word Kinko. You're right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What percentage of your closings are done virtually?
50% probably.
Wow.
We have a lot of sellers who don't attend, and then buyers, honestly, there's still a lot of them from out of town, or they're tying up loose ends from where they're moving from. And so they just sign, via power of attorney kind of a thing, or if it's cash, they just mail them the documents, they sign everything in front of a notary, and then FedEx them back. So I'd say about 50%. Now it's probably going to start increasing, also because of the environment and that people are coming back and going back into offices and things like that instead of staying away like they were for the last 2 years.
How many people are C2C of South Carolina, the team, your team? How large is your team?
There's 12 of us. So, and we can, each closing coordinator could probably handle around 50 to 70 closings a month.
When it comes to your services, we've talked a lot about the buyers. How does it help the seller? How does your efforts help the seller?
Sure. And I thank you for asking that too, because a lot of real estate agents wonder if they actually need to hire us from the seller side because they think that's less involved. And I completely disagree with that thought process, because from the seller side, I'm gathering information that they have. If they have flood, can it be assumed by the buyer side? I want to arm the buyer side with as much information as possible coming from the seller side, so they don't have an excuse of saying, well, we didn't know that there was a special assessment. We didn't know there was a flood. You did because I got it and I got it over to you. The other thing is keeping in touch with the buyer's lender, making sure that loan is progressing the way it should progress so that we can get to closing and that nothing slows us down. So being on the seller side or the buyer side, to me, they're both equally important because, again, you're talking to those main people to make sure things are getting done so that we can all get to closing on time.
Well, you're protecting both parties is what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure not everybody thinks of it that way because probably some think you guys are a bit of a pain. But the bottom line is you're a pain because you're trying to protect everybody.
Right. I jokingly say I'm like a gnat in somebody's ear, and I will go away once they give me what I need and what I ask for. There you go.
I like that. It's better being a pain in the ass. When it comes to the real estate closing right now and what's going on in this moment in time, we both agreed that it's not a bubble as some people have speculated in the past. But what is the number one thing the buyer should look for in this environment?
They just need to be ready to present. If they're getting a loan, that needs to be wrapped up. They don't need to be shopping around at that point in time. They need to have their lender in place, have all their financials ready to hand over to that lender so that they can go. It is not a time to be second guessing who you're going to, get a loan from or anything like that, because you're not going to be competitive in this market when you're trying to put an offer in. And there's going to be a lot of other offers just like you, but have all their stuff together. So if you're a buyer getting a loan, I'd advise you have all your financials ready to move forward with that lender. So once you can get accepted with that contract, you can move on.
What are the top 2 or 5 things that the buyer should have? I hear what you're saying, but let's be specific so they know.
I would, again, the lender have that ready to go. Home inspector, if they want to get one, know who they want to use or have discussed that with their agent so they can have that done. Insurance, start shopping around with insurance. If they have somebody that, they use from out of state, they are not as familiar with our in-state kind of what we, have to deal with down here. They might not be used to hurricanes and things like that. So it's good to have that sort of stuff in place. All the people on their side, they need to be working with ahead of time before they start trying to put in contracts. And also be ready to move. Be ready to move forward with that contract. Don't slow anything down because, again, it's so competitive out there that, the seller's going to look for a buyer that has all their ducks in a row to make sure it closes.
That and the sellers are becoming more attuned to that too. So from a seller standpoint, take that same question and tell us all what's important in the seller side of it.
Be ready to move. That's the one thing that seems to be catching a lot of sellers off guard is that if you pick the best contract there, the most competitive contract, well, that thing's going to move forward to closing within 30 days or less. So the seller better be ready to vacate the property on closing day, if not before. And also, again, I think as a seller side, have all your information there. Know if you have flood, who's it with, get your mortgage information lined up, because people like me are going to ask for that sort of stuff because the attorney is going to require that information so that they can get your payoff and everything like that for closing. So those kind of questions are going to be asked of them. So they just need to be prepared for that.
Sandra, at this point in time, how long are the typical listing on the market?
2 hours, a day, maybe a week. It depends on the property, because if you have a very unique piece of property, there's one that's been on the market for probably a year that I've seen. A friend of mine was looking at it, but it's a very, very unique property. If you're I don't want to say standard, but I guess if you're in a neighborhood like a Park West or Dunes West or something like that, and that house is going to go very, very quickly.
When they're looking for a place to stay, I don't think people really realize how rentals are where they are or how place to move to. It's like crazy, is it not?
It is. We had one client that they had to move to a rental 2-bedroom downtown, and they had 4 kids because they could not find a rental in Mount Pleasant. or West Ashley or James Island. And they had little kids. That was the only rental they could find at that moment in time before they're building another house, and it just wasn't ready yet. So they were kind of in between at that point.
You talk to the buyers as well as the sellers, right? But usually both sides?
I work on both sides, and sometimes my closing coordinators and I will be on either side. So we really like when that little situation happens, because then I'm dealing with one of my closing coordinators and they're dealing with me on the other side. So
that's great.
That tends to be a great closing.
Oh, yeah. And because of the volume of business you're doing, that probably continues to happen more frequently than before, correct?
It does. It actually does.
Have you seen any of these letters that people are sending out about, what do they call them? Love letters? What do they call them?
Oh, yeah. I've seen a couple. I actually had one of our, I was on the seller side, and they picked the buyer because of the letter. And
what was the content of the letter? Can you divulge that a little bit?
Just how they could see them raising their family in there, that they had 2 young kids, the house was on a cul-de-sac, and it would be the perfect family atmosphere. And this was an older couple who had raised their kids in that home. And so they loved the fact that the house was going back to another young family going to have the same sort of experiences that they had in that house. So that really spoke to the sellers.
So yeah, I know that those letters are not supposed to be taken into consideration, the transaction, right. But you and I both know they are. Hey, right. It's Sandra, you know as well as I do that location is everything, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. If you took that equation away from where we live, okay, which is coastal Carolina, in South Carolina, why do you think we're seeing so many people move in here? Can you address that? I know it's hard to, because it's always about location. But is there right. something else that you can think of, the reason that compels people to move like they've been doing?
I think there's a couple of things. Weather, because you have a lot of people, again, moving from the states up north or Midwest where there's a lot of snow and they're tired of it. Also, historical value. You know, South Carolina is a historical state. There's a lot of information here, and to be a part of the U.S. history is kind of a cool and unique thing. So I think a lot of the historical and the weather is definitely attracting a lot of people. And the views. I mean, just looking at the landscape is fabulous. Spoken like a true Charlestonian. Amen.
Hey, listen, I really appreciate you being with us here on Voice for Real Estate. And to be completely transparent, I know you like the magazine, Mount Pleasant Magazine, you support it, and we appreciate that too. But most importantly, I hope the information we've shared together here and talked about will help the listeners up north and elsewhere, because this Voice for Real Estate is a perfect way to get to know the area from professionals. So you're one of the professionals on here, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, I really thank you for having me, and I've enjoyed talking with you. And I'm here if any real estate agent has any questions, and we can help you out for sure.
And I'm here to say she's really good at what she does. Thanks, Sandra, very much. Okay.
Thanks, Bill. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching Voice for Real Estate, where you meet local experts who provide timely information in every episode. Be sure to subscribe, share, and comment. Find Voice for Real Estate online at voiceforrealestate.com.